Virtual tours are now also available at Kia, and not just in the EV6 GT, which I'm already allowed to show you dynamically, but also, so to speak, in my car, but as the GT variant. Because today, I get to show you the Kia EV6 GT. And with that, hey, and welcome to this brand new video here on House, and welcome to the first quick look at the Kia EV6 GT. As part of the EV6 GT driving event, Kia has brought the big brother, essentially my car but even sportier. If 388 horsepower isn't enough, you can shine here with 508 horsepower and a virtual gear shift. A system that we're already familiar with from the Ioniq 5N, I'll link it up above for you. And as of today, when this video goes online, it's also available in the EV6 GT. And I'm a bit envious, though not necessarily of the virtual gear lever or the gear selection mode. Not a big deal to me, but we'll take a look at it shortly. No, I'm quite envious of the design. Kia already had this exact section featured in other markets. So in the USA and also in Korea, you get illuminated or rather backlit panels here that you can even adjust dynamically, and up until now, these haven't been available in the European market. We have to settle for these pixels here, even though this LED strip, which includes the daytime running lights, is really large, and every single time it blinks, I'm genuinely impressed, so from my own car. But this I find really cool because it significantly boosts the car's overall appeal, and this feature is now exclusively available for the GT variant. However, it's a downside because the vehicle unfortunately doesn't offer matte color options. So if you're thinking, hey, I'd really like it in matte blue or that matte gray, then unfortunately the GT is no longer an option for you. I think it looks really cool visually, and it adds a lot to the overall appeal. Otherwise, the GT isn't that much different from our GT line. These air intakes have been slightly adjusted in their structure, but it's not a huge transformation that makes it suddenly look super sporty or aggressive. And that's also a phenomenon you know from the EV6 GT. It looks a bit different from the back with reverse and brake lights, but in itself, the GT line is already very, very sporty. For us as customers, of course, really cool. Then it's often only worth buying the GT package, and you can save a bit of money. Prices aren't known yet, but I'd assume it's likely going to start at just under 100,000 euros or thereabouts. Ours is nearly 90,000, and this one clearly provides more features and enhanced performance. The Koreans are going to charge for that, and that's why, if you want this, you have to go for the GT. Those who don't still have the design as it is. We're already familiar with the almost square rims from Kia. Here's a fresh interpretation though. 21 inches remains the largest available option. So they didn't think, hey, let's go the extra mile and make it 22 or 23 inches. 21 inches is already fine, but when you take a look at how tall the tires are, I can already picture exactly the kinds of comments people are going to be leaving about it online. It could have maybe gone a bit bigger, that would have been totally doable, honestly. What you can see well behind it though is the large brake caliper, and it comes in the familiar GT neon green yellow, whatever you want to call it. And the brake disc looks solid too. Not too many technical details though, like what the rear motor can do, what the front motor can do, whether these are different units or if it's the same kind of setup as in my all-wheel drive. Just overclocked and adjusted, I guess. I don't know yet. If there are still technical details to be provided, I'll make a cut here for now. I'll get you the data, and otherwise, we'll jump to the back. A few things could still be figured out, let's put it that way, because I managed to uncover a few details during the event itself. Others only after more in-depth research later. For example, one question was, what kind of engines are actually installed? Since our Kia EV9 in the GT line already has all-wheel drive with nearly 400 horsepower, maybe the engines are just being controlled in a different way. That's not the case because the rear motor is probably the same as in the EV6 GT, which I already showed you earlier this morning. Actually demonstrate dynamically, and it will then also find its place here in the EV9 GT, at least to the best of my knowledge, right? No one has been able to confirm it for me at this point. What has been confirmed, however, is that there is an electronic locking differential on the rear axle here. That means the torque and accordingly the power of the individual wheels can be adjusted, whether more on the inner or outer curve or less, depending. Less torque is needed, and that of course makes the car inherently more dynamic and responsive. But that's not all, because the front camera is used to control the electronically adaptive dampers. They're also making their debut in the GT. Ours still has a classic steel suspension unlike all the other EV9 models so far. Now, however, it's easy to seamlessly adjust between comfort and sportiness through the control of the dampers, and this also adapts dynamically depending on the road conditions. The camera detects the surface and controls the dampers accordingly. I find it really exciting. It'll be especially interesting to see if you can adjust it manually or if it's more like the Tesla Model 3 currently, at least in terms of performance. that those selective dampers are indeed there, but the car largely controls it on its own. And those were the 2 points I was able to figure out regarding the suspension and engine tuning. At the rear, the EV9 GT truly leans into understatement, as the sole indication is this small GT badge placed down here, that this is the new top-tier variant. Otherwise, it just says GT line, and that can actually be a bit confusing. But at the latest, when you flash your lights at it on the highway and it speeds away quite rapidly, you'll immediately know it was the GT variant. So not GT line, but the real GT version. I think you know what I mean. I think the color is really cool. It has a nice depth, almost leaning a bit towards silver, but it's still gray, of course. It suits the car very well, makes it super modern, and is genuinely cool. Starting with the trunk and towing capacity, it's 2.5 tons, just like the standard Kia EV9. I find that really sensible and good. Here, as usual, there's a bit of space in the lower area where you can position, for example, the parcel shelf, and of course the option to fold down the rear seats. That's done electrically on both sides. So, left side as well. Perfect. Then the headrests fold away and you have up to 807 liters of trunk space. When they're up, it's 333 liters. Still okay. That's almost in the range of, for example, a VW ID.3, even with 6 or 7 seats in the base model. And that's really something. And when it comes to trunk space, I don't even need to tell you. In our Kia EV9, we've got the stroller, the travel luggage. We're genuinely super flexible, and that's absolutely a standout feature right here. Because when we talk about the competitors, there aren't that many. Sure, a Tesla Model X Plaid, also a sporty version with over 1,000 horsepower, this one here can't quite keep up with that. But at least it offers more trunk space than the Tesla, providing a more practical and usable capacity overall. It's always tricky to just take the numbers by themselves. At the time, we made an e-car family video. I'll link it for you up there in the corner, where we tested various e-cars for families, and I'm not sure who else this car here is supposed to appeal to other than very ambitious family men. It's really cool, and that feeling carries over to the interior. We're moving from the back to the front, starting with the third row. Here you've got ISOFIX on the outer seats, electrically adjustable rear seat backs, so you can really make the most of it or create more trunk space. And I find that really impressive because the seat here is currently in the rearmost position, and I can still position my feet quite well. Even if you have this 7-seater version with a closed second row of seats to, for example, better secure the additional space in the trunk, which was our purchasing decision in order to not go for the 6-seater version, then you still manage quite well here. And I think it's one of the few all-electric 7 or 6-seaters where you have decent space in the third row, can actually use it, and then also comfortably fit 6 or 7 adults, or optionally have an ISOFIX mount, or here an ISOFIX to take along. Other models, such as the Volvo EX90, also come with 3 seats in that row. It's not quite as comfortable back here. In the 6-seater version, you can easily walk through the middle. Of course, the seats could also move forward electrically, and you could go around the outside, but if there's already space in the middle, why not make good use of it? The captain's chair variants actually come with armrests in the middle, but not on the outside. You just rest your arm normally on the door. Optional are these here, which also have reclining functions, meaning there's a support here at the bottom, and I can switch into a comfort relax mode. In the standard version, there's a continuous rear bench seat that can be moved forward and backward in a 40-60 ratio. We have that in our car here. Personally, I find it much more practical, which I think is really cool. What immediately catches my eye is the ambient lighting here. That's not available in the non-GT versions. And there's also this kind of Alcantara material here, which is really cool. The seats are actually made with real Alcantara, and typical for the GT, feature a neon green-yellow accent. They're incredibly comfortable, and I think they're really cool and well executed. Additionally, the 6-seater version includes a table with built-in storage space underneath. So that's always a bit here, a big storage space and a table on top. Pretty cool. It's a shame, really, it's not available in the 7-seater version. And one more thing, equipment-wise in all EV9 models, the sunshade here in the back. And I can spoil this much, it was a deciding factor for our next electric car. If you know what it is, feel free to write it in the comments and I'll jump forward. Here's the familiar look, but with a sportier touch. Definitely sportier seats, which I really like in terms of their visual design and overall appeal. The side bolsters, they can be adjusted electrically, moving in and out, for example, when you switch to sport mode. And I think overall, it really elevates the interior. Plus, there's now the new GT steering wheel here. That's no longer what you had with the EV9 before. It's just a shame that the Kia logo doesn't light up anymore. That was a cool feature in the regular EV9. Plus, there's this application here now in a sort of suede look. This here, almost resembling a carbon finish. And of course, the sound inside the vehicle itself. It's a bit different compared to, for example, Hyundai. In the EV6, we talk about it more extensively because, despite having this sound, I can also use the paddle shifters to shift through the virtual gears accordingly. Outside, I couldn't really hear that much, and I didn't find much about it in the settings either. We'll discuss all of that in more detail in the EV6, as I'm just going to assume it's relatively identical. New to this, for example, is a timer here. Technically though, the system remains the same, updatable over the air, but with a major sticking point because the whole media streaming issue, YouTube, Netflix, and other features apparently aren't coming to the EV9 and EV6 models, and as an EV9 driver, I feel not exactly betrayed but a little bit let down, because during the EV9 reveal, they promised video streaming would come. Currently, the response from the press is also no, only for the EV3 models for now. I don't understand, I really can't see why they're completely leaving the premium vehicles out of it. Curious about the software? Watch our latest Kia videos, this panel uses the same. It's the same across all models, period. It's just that this here is new, but you can turn it off, so no worries. And both the exterior and interior tone can become more relaxed, but I think the seating position is really good. And since I'm already on the driver's seat, here are a few technical details. Over 500 kilometers of range should be achievable from the 99.8 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity. It goes from 0 to 100 in 4.6 seconds. That's quite a statement for such a large vehicle, especially since it'll weigh over 2.5 tons again. That's it for today. Easy, I'm very sure of that. It can just barely pull itself straight from the back. When you factor in trailers, that probably won't work. On top of that, 740 Newton meters of torque and, as mentioned earlier, 508 horsepower, and that's quite a substantial amount. So I think it's really cool to get that into a car like this. The only question is, where does that put you price-wise and how big the market actually is? I almost forgot to mention the Frank to you. It's also available in the GT version here with 52 liters, and in the rear-wheel drive, which isn't available as a GT, you could get up to 90 liters. So it's more than enough to, for example, store an energy kick or, your charging cable. And the car will have a tough time. I'm absolutely very sure of that. It's extremely very niche. Because the EV9 alone isn't exactly a bestseller, where you see it on the streets somehow. Hundreds of thousands of units, especially here in Germany. Take a look at Norway and Sweden, you'll see way more of them around there. For us, it's really a cost factor. Because when families go for such a big and expensive car, it's often more likely to be a van. And with the ID Buzz, there's a strong competitor right now. It can't really match this one in terms of technology and performance, but for many, it's also a very practical and convenient option. I'd love to hear what you think about the car in the comments below. And besides, up here you can see my latest test, the Kia EV9, and down here. Is there a GTX version of the ID.Bus that was just mentioned?